Our new message series is all about the people involved around the crucifixion of Jesus. Really what we're trying to see is the part that they play and the why and the how, but most importantly, the application for us. Do we end up being like any of these individuals? Now, yesterday was all about Judas. I know some were wondering, David, what are you talking about? Judas, the betrayer of Jesus, and me, something in common? And you're saying, no way. And I get it, okay, Judas is not a person with whom most of us easily identify. I think the reason is oftentimes because we stay focused on his dastardly deed, his betrayal of Jesus. And what I'm suggesting, it may be good for us to focus on how Judas came to that point of betrayal. Honestly, I don't believe there's any question as to whether Judas loved Jesus. I believe he starts out as a loyal and passionately committed. Remember, Jesus chose him as one of the 12. He gave him a responsible position. He made him the treasurer. But we do see a couple of things in his life. Yesterday, we focused in on the big one, his disillusionment. And then there's some evidence of his greed in Judas' life. Perhaps he was jealous. There was tension among the 12 that were seemingly always jockeying for positions and power. And I doubt if Judas escaped some of that. So ambition was also a factor in Judas' life. So honestly, I think you can say that he's a person like us, right? Desire and greed, jealousy, ambition, none of these are foreign to us. Today, I'd like you to consider something else in Judas' life. And I want you to evaluate your life in light of that. Judas also seems to have this desire to control, to take things into his own hands. Anyone else resonate with that? I mean, how often do we take things into our own hands? How often do we want to make sure that we're in control? Richard Foster has a great quote in his book, Celebration of Discipline. He says, the obsession to demand that things go the way that we want them to go is one of the greatest bondages in human society today. People will spend weeks, months, even years, he says, in perpetual stew because some little thing did not go as they wished. And they'll fuss and they'll fume and they'll get mad about it. They'll act as if their very life hangs on the issue. They may even get an ulcer over it. And I read that and I just go, ouch. Now, Foster would go on and he says, this is why submission, hear that word, submission is such an important discipline. And I think that's why James says it's so important to you and to me. Remember in chapter 4, he starts out in verse 1. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? This is the battle that Judas has within. And I think if we're honest, you and I do as well. But now go down to verse 7 and the first part of verse 8. James says, submit yourselves then to God. Submit, right? Then he says, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Come near to God and he'll come near to you. Now, Judas didn't. And the question is, how about you? What burden it is of always needing to get our own way, of always having to be in control. I think it can lead us certainly to distraction, if not destruction. So Judas' sin of taking things in his own hands, I think is definitely a factor in leading him to betray Christ. So we got to make sure that we're not traveling down that same pathway. Amen? Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you soon.